Hello, everyone. Welcome. Looks like our numbers have stabilized, so we will kick off. So welcome and thank you for joining me today. This is our last Tableau Prep user group session for the year, and I'm thrilled that you were able to make one last one before the Christmas rush. This will be recorded and will go up on the Tableau YouTube. So if you have to leave early, then don't worry, you'll get to see more later. So my name is Beth Kairys. I'm an analytics consultant from InterWorks, a global tech consultancy and a Tableau partner. Fun fact, InterWorks is actually the first Tableau Gold partner. So there you go. We've got a long history and I'm thrilled to be here today with you. I lead the Tableau Prep user group along with Jack and Jenny, who you can see on the screen here, both of them from the Information Lab in the UK and both currently asleep, given that time zone. And I have the absolute pleasure of introducing today's speakers. I've got Youssef Shoukry from Tableau, who's going to be taking you through some of the highlights of prep in 2021. And I've got Kendra Allenspach from InterWorks, who's going to take you through some of the tips for using prep in production environments. I'm so excited to hear what these guys have for us today. A few administrative points. Please use the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom controls. So if you've got questions, chuck them in the Q&A. Feel free to use the chat for general chit chat, as I see people are doing already. And you'll also see some links coming out from us into that chat as well. So questions in the Q&A so we can distinguish them, and general chit chat and links from us will be into the chat. There'll be quite a few links coming out for these sessions. So keep an eye on the chat for those, including a SurveyMonkey link that will ask you to complete at the end of Youssef's session, and a Slido poll that Kendra will ask you to complete in her session as well. And we'll give you these throughout, so just keep an eye on that. So Youssef's going to kick us off. I'm going to pass the screen to him and fade into the background. If you've got questions or you hit technical errors, feel free to reach out in the chat and I'll get you sorted. Thanks, Youssef.
Thanks, Beth. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So my name is Youssef Shoukry. I lead the product management team for Tableau Prep, and I'm connecting to this call today from the not so sunny today, Seattle. I've been in Tableau for about 3.5 years, and I currently lead the product management team for Prep. So today, my goal is to talk to you a little bit about what we built this year in 2021 and do some demos that highlight some of those capabilities. But before I dig into that and jump right into the actual features, I just want to set some context and talk a little bit about where Tableau Prep fit in the Tableau data management offering that we have here in Tableau. So our Tableau data management is the solution that we offer to help our customers meet the data demands of the world we live in today. And we think about it in terms of 3 main pillars. There is the preparing your data and building your data pipeline pillar, where you use Tableau Prep to connect to your data in disparate locations, different formats, bring that, clean it, transform it, and then write it out to where you need to use it. That can be Tableau, it can be a file, or it can be a database table, wherever you need the clean data. And then you can use the Tableau Prep conductor component to operationalize that flow and run it on a schedule and be notified when something goes wrong, etc. Then the next pillar is the discover and trust portion. So now that you have your data pipelines, you have your extracts, you have your workbooks in Tableau environment, how can you easily discover the data that you need to use? How can you trust that data is clean and it's refreshed and it's trustworthy? So that's where Tableau Catalog comes in. It allows you to discover new data assets using the enhanced search capabilities, but it also allows you to do things like impact analysis and understanding the lineage of your assets. So if you a data stored, if you know on a database, you can know exactly what artifacts are being used, are using that database or that table. You can go all the way to field level. So if you're changing a field, for example, you can do impact analysis. You can find out exactly who will be affected if that field change, and you can reach out to them. Also, there's data quality warnings component where you can add manual or automatic data quality warnings on your assets that get bubbled all the way to the consumer of your data. And then finally, the last pillar, which is brand new, and we announced it in Tableau conference, and it's currently in beta, and it's going out soon, is the security portion. It's a new asset in Tableau called virtual connection, where you get to build a virtual connections layer on top of your actual physical database layer that you can then configure to do row level security. So you determine who gets to see what portions of the data without the consumer of those connections having any visibility into the actual underlying databases. So with that said, I'm just going to jump into Tableau Prep. And given that this is the Tableau Prep user group, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Tableau Prep. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But we focus on three main design principles in Tableau Prep, or focus areas. One, it's visual and direct. As you see, as you're familiar, we have these three coordinated views. You can see your entire flow. You can see profile panes showing you the breakdown of all the data. Most of the operations like filtering and joining and union and etc. are all visual, and you can reach out, make changes, and see the results right in context. We try to make it as smart as possible. So we do what we call SQL push down. So we get to push down operations all the way to the database. Things like filtering or joins or aggregates. We push those down in the query we issue against the database, so we minimize unnecessary data movement. We do things also like fuzzy grouping, so you can group values by pronunciation or by spelling, so you can quickly fix typos and mistakes in the data. And we offer some recommendations in Tableau Prep. As you're familiar, if the data type is a location, for example, we suggest that you change it to the right data type. And then finally, it's fully integrated with Tableau, but we also let you write the data in externally to databases and files wherever you need the clean data. And if you need more than what Tableau Prep can support, can offer out of the box, then the extensibility with Python and R scripts that Tableau Prep supports will allow you to do more than what's available out of the box. The second component of Tableau Prep, so Tableau Prep Builder is where you build your Tableau Prep flow and you create your pipeline. Tableau Prep Conductor is where you operationalize it, is where you publish it to Tableau Server or Tableau Online. You schedule it to run on a recurring basis. You get notified when something goes wrong. You can see history, and we'll see some of the new features that are coming. We'll talk about it in a little bit. So we had a very busy year last year. So this is some of the things we've delivered in Tableau Prep this year, and we're not slowing down. I'm not going to go over every single item on this list, but I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. And then I'm going to do some demos that for some of the items on here to showcase it to you, and happy to answer any questions you have on the items I will demo or the items that I won't be demoed. So in 2020.4, in December last year, we offered the ability to use Tableau Prep Builder fully in the browser natively. So instead of having to install a Tableau Prep Builder on the desktop, you now have the option to use it in the browser, either on Tableau Server if you're using Tableau Server on premises, or in Tableau Online site if you are a Tableau Online user. It's almost full parity. There are a couple of items that are not yet at parity, and it's something we're working hard to make sure we get there. So some of the examples there are direct file connectivity is not yet available in the browser, and we're working on that. Or third-party drivers. So if you have an ODBC or a JDBC driver of your own that you want to use, you still cannot do that in the browser. But aside from that, it's almost at full parity. We also brought the ability to run script nodes, so Python and R scripts in Prep Conductor, so not just in Builder on the desktop, but also in Tableau Server, so you can operationalize those flows that take advantage of that extensibility. We started bringing spatial data support. There is a lot more work for us to do there in this area, but that was the very first step for us to make Tableau Prep understand spatial data and pass it safely to its destination. Later in the year, we allowed you to write out data to Excel files, which is one of the top asks that we had. You can now connect to Salesforce on Tableau Prep. And a big pain point that we hear a lot from customers is that sometimes the errors that you get in Tableau Prep are not very clear or descriptive. And we've been investing a lot this year in improving that quality of the errors. Let that be in the Tableau Prep builder on the desktop, or when you schedule the flow or run it in the server environment. And we continue to improve in this area. Later in the year, we released the ability to write data to Google BigQuery, marking the 8th database that you can write to. So now you can write data out to Tableau, serve as a published data source or a Tableau online site. You can write data out to files, and that can be a hyper file, a CSV file, and now Excel file. And then you can write data out to database tables. We support now 8 databases, including Google BigQuery. We also added integration with Tableau CRM, which used to be called Einstein Analytics. It's Salesforce machine learning service. So we added the ability to create a prediction node in Tableau Prep that take advantage of the power of the Einstein Analytic or Tableau CRM service. Then finally, in Tableau in 2021.3 that were released about a couple of months ago, we released the ability to create what we call linked tasks, and I will show that in a demo soon. And that is basically the ability to line multiple jobs to run in sequence, and you get to control whether they run if one of the jobs in that sequence fails. Tableau Prep would guarantee that the flows will only run after the previous job is finished, and that way you can build a reliable data pipeline instead of having to guess when the previous flow that your other flow relies on finishes, so you can schedule the flow after that. We also add the ability to generate missing rows in Tableau Prep. That can be in date fields or in numeric fields, and I'll show a demo of that. And then, like I mentioned, we continue to improve error handling and make sure that the error messages are as actionable and clear as possible. Some of the features that are coming soon, I will demo today as well, are parameters and email notifications. These are coming in the 2021.4 release. That's coming out hopefully soon. And I will use the opportunity today of the user group to demo those features that are not publicly available yet. So you get sort of a sneak peek into these capabilities. So now I'm gonna switch to the browser. And like I mentioned, Tableau Prep is now fully in the browser. So I have a field, a Tableau Prep flow here that I've been editing. I'm still working on it. It's not complete. I get to see that it's a draft. I'm going to click continue editing. And then once I'm editing this flow, one of the features that I want to show to you here is the ability to bulk edit field names. So far, if you want to make a change in the field name, you have to do that manually for each field you have. Any future field that gets added as your flow is running on daily basis, for example, will not be affected by that. We heard from our customers that there are a lot of cases like this one where you have a prefix like field underscore or some suffix in your fields, or you want to remove spaces, for example, and that you want to generalize that. You want to do it on every single field existing today or going to be added in the future as your flow is running. So we call that bulk field name editing. So I can click on the name fields here, and I can choose to replace text, and I'm gonna search for the word field underscore, and I'm gonna leave it blank to remove it. And you can see a preview of the action where all the field underscore values will be removed when I do that. There's an option here to run this rule on any future added new field. So I'm going to do that. So any field that gets added to the data source when this flow is running on a recurring basis, this same rule will apply to it. The next feature I want to talk about is generating new rows. There are a lot of cases where your data is incomplete. So for example, here I have sales data. And if you look at the days, you can see that some of the days are missing. But that makes this data not a great candidate for analysis, because your time series might, or if you have some, if you're feeding this data into another operation that needs the data to be complete, then you want to generate those missing records. And the Tableau Prep new rows feature does just that. So I can add a new super node here called new rows. When I go ahead and create that, and I'm going to say create it from a field, and I'm going to pick my date field for this. And then I have some options. I can either update the existing field, which is the date field. So basically just create the new roles and fill that field, or I can create a new field so the original field is unaffected. I have some options. I can specify the increment. Since this is date, I get to specify a date increment, either day, week, or month. I get to decide what's the minimum and maximum value that I want to generate rows in between. By default, Tableau Prep would pick the minimum and the maximum values that you have in your field, or you can override that. And then you get to decide for all the other fields that are available for these new rows that gets created, what values gets to go there. And you can pick null or zero, or you can copy from a previous row. In this case, I'm gonna just leave it at null or zero. And here you can see a quick preview of the fields that get the rows that will get created. So I have 10.1 and 10.8, and then it will generate the missing rows out of this sample. And if I do a clean step here, I can see that the data will have all the missing rows. So now I have 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, all the consequent values, a list of values all the way from the smaller to the highest date value that I had in this set. Next thing I want to show is writing out to Google BigQuery, and I'm going to just take advantage of this flow that I have here, and I'm going to pick database table. And you've probably seen that before, but we support 8 databases today. So Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, Snowflake, and Teradata. In this case, I'm going to pick BigQuery. I already created a connection here. So I'm going to create a brand new connection just in case. And I'm going to use my account. Select a project, and a project, a billing project, and a project. Select the data set, and then I can select a table name to write to. In this case, I want to write to a brand new table, so I'm going to create table. And then I have 3 different options. And you've probably seen this with other databases, but I can create a new table. I will get a warning. And what this will do is every time the flow runs, a brand new table will be created with the data, with the structure that you have in this data. If the same table exists, if the table with the same name exists, then it will be discarded and a new table will be always created. The second option is to append to an existing table. What this does is it will keep the existing table structure, it will keep the existing table rows, and it will just add new rows to it. And you can use this user interface to make sure that the fields are mapped in the way you want them to. So you can adjust the field names to make sure that they are mapping correctly. And then finally, the third option is to replace data in an existing table. That is somewhat different from creating a new table because it will keep the structure of the existing table. It will just replace the data. So if your data have some fields that do not exist in the existing table, those fields will be ignored. And this same experience work with all the 8 databases that we currently support. Next thing I want to show is the linked tasks feature. So imagine a world where you have 2 or 3 flows that each of those flows produces data set that next flow takes advantage of or uses as an input. And you want to make sure that when each of these subsequent flows run, they are running against fresh data. So you want to make sure that they run in the right order. Before, you would have had to schedule them apart enough to guarantee that they will run in that order. But with the new linked tasks, we take the guessing out of this job, and you have now an option called linked tasks here. So if I select that, it will run my flow, but now I can run a series of flows. And before I do that, let's go to the lineage. If I look at the lineage of this flow, I can see that there is another flow downstream from my flow. So my flow is called Salesforce customer data, and I can see that there is another flow downstream from it. This is the lineage control that Tableau catalog offers that is called survey response analysis, and that uses the Salesforce customer data output. So if I go back and create a new linked task, you will see that Tableau Prep will check the catalog lineage, and will determine that there is already a downstream flow from this flow, and it will recommend that I create a linked task with that flow. But if I want to add another task that isn't necessarily downstream from it, I can still do that. I can do view all flows, and I get to see all the flows I have in my site, and I can create this series of jobs that will run back to back. And then I can select a schedule, maybe every weekly, and I can create this task. I can also kick off this ad hoc, so it doesn't have to be always scheduled. I can come here, select this, and I can do run now, and it will run the entire scene together. I think I have 2 more things quickly to show. Parameters. So parameters is a big ask from Tableau Prep. There are a lot of cases where you build your flow and then you want to use it for slightly different scenarios, using against different input files or different table names, or you want to do different types of filters or filtering against different category values. And for that, today, you will have to create multiple copies of the same flow. With parameters, you get to parameterize the values that you want to make them variable, and you can build a templatized version, if you will, of your flow and publish that. And then you and your team and other people taking advantage of that flow can run or schedule that same flow with different values and create different outputs that suit their own needs. So you don't have to build multiple copies of the same flow. You can build it once and have it reused for multiple use cases. So in this case, I have here a flow that analyzes the Eurovision contest scores, and I have a table here coming from a Snowflake database that's called EV 2018 scores. So, but maybe I have multiple files for different years, so I want to parameterize the value of that table name. So you can see that there will be a new parameter dialog here. So I can create a new parameter. I'm going to call it table name, and I'm going to give it the same. I'm going to choose to be string. I'm going to give it the value that is currently the table name I need, 2018 scores. I have the option to make it a list or a free text field. So if it's a list, you get to specify a list for your user who is running this flow to pick from, instead of them having to type actual values. You can also choose to make that value required to be provided every time the flow is triggered to run either ad hoc or through a schedule. So in this case, I'm going to require it, and I'm going to keep the current values that will be currently used to be this value. And I'm going to, so now that the parameter is created, I can come back here for the table. And instead of choosing an existing table, I'm going to use parameters, use a parameter, and then I'm going to pick the table name. Oops. So now the table name in that input node is parameterized. So every time I run this flow, so I have this similar flow here. If I go click run, I'm asked to enter a value because I marked this as required. And whatever I put in here is the table name that this either ad hoc run or scheduled job will use every time it runs. The last thing I want to show is the ability to send more information, more email notifications after the flows are done. Today, we do send you an email after the flow finishes, only if the Tableau Prep flow failed. We send you an email with a failure message so you can troubleshoot and fix that problem. We heard often from our customers that they want to see more. They want to get notified. They want to have other people be notified when the flow finishes. So if I come here and I create a scheduled task, you'll see that there is a new option, send email when done. And in this option now, I can specify who this email gets to send to. Before this feature, only the person who created that schedule will receive the notification. Now you can specify any number of users, but that's not all. You can also include the data if you want as an attachment in the file. So for example, here I have two outputs. I'm going to choose that I want this file to be attached to the email as a CSV file. So if you want to make sure that the data is correct, or you want to take a quick glance at the data without having to open a report or come here to Tableau server, you can choose to have the data attached in the email you receive after the flow runs. And you'll see also another tab here called subscriptions. So you don't have to schedule a job in order to get this feature. You can just find a flow that already is running, has some schedule associated with it, and you can subscribe to that flow. So every time that flow runs, you receive the same amount of information. It's a similar set of settings that you have here. So that's all I have for demos. I'm going to open the Q&A and address some of it.
Yeah, I might
please.
just give Youssef a minute to catch up with that Q&A. I've seen the questions come flying in. So thank you everyone for being such a chatty bunch and for bringing in those questions. There were some great things in there. I'm going to call out some of my favorites while Youssef can have a chance to look through those. Prep in browser. This is something that has been super helpful for me. I love being able to jump in and just quickly fix a problem or add a feature, add a new piece of logic, save it again, and continue with my day. So much faster than bringing it down and sending it back up again. Linked tasks. I have so many prep flows that at the moment have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger because I need things to run before other things. Being able to separate those out and link them together with that logic, it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. Generating missing fields. There were some comments in here. This is your date lookup. This is your giant dummy data dates. So excited to maybe be able to get rid of dummy date tables and be able to have a bit more options in that space. Parameters in flows. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to play with that one. And emailing data at the end. Oh, I think that's going to save people so much time. There's inevitable questions of, can I see the data before we put it in? Or can I have a copy of the spreadsheet? And you can automate that task. Some absolute time savers and complete winners in there that I'm super excited about. And based on all the chat that I've seen and the questions, sounds like you are too. Youssef, I'll pass it back to you for some of the questions.
All right. Thanks, Beth. So I'm going to go down the questions very quickly. Any chance to add DB2 output? It is on the list, so stay tuned. We have a long backlog of outputs that we want to add to Tableau Prep. Any discussions about Tableau Prep Public that Click users get into Tableau Prep with Tableau Public? If you've seen the Tableau conference keynote, we actually did announce that Tableau Prep is coming to Tableau Public. So stay tuned. That's happening. It is still very early, so it's not going to be very soon, but it is happening, and we would love to bring Tableau Prep to Tableau Public so you can showcase your work, you can share your work, and then eventually you can even edit and run your work there as well. Where can we learn more about virtual connections? Looks very promising for enterprise use cases. So right now they are not released yet. They are in beta. I think in Tableau conference that just happened, there are a bunch of sessions that talked about that. So look those up. But stay tuned, because once it's released, hopefully soon, there will be a lot of documentation and training material that comes out with that. Does Tableau Prep in the browser sample at a much lower rate? I find my joins almost never show data in the sample. It does limit the size of the sample, correct? Because it's running in the browser, it's using your server resources, and it's sharing resources with other sessions. It is not drastically reduced than the regular sampling we do on the desktop. It's almost very close. What we removed the ability to do is remove the ability to choose all data, because that can overwhelm the server. Feel free to reach out to support for the case where you don't see your joins. There might be something going on there, but the sampling, if you've noticed drastic difference in the sampling, out of the box sampling in the desktop and in the browser, that shouldn't really be the case. What version of Tableau Prep Builder I'm using? I think I'm using 21.3, and it's all in the browser. I didn't use any desktop version today. Will the rename fields be extended to do other transformations? I find sometimes one data source might have all the fields in lowercase. Then you, absolutely, that's something that we're thinking about. It's something that you should see in the future as well. When will Tableau Prep support SharePoint list or connections? I do believe we support SharePoint lists today, as of I believe the .2 release this year. So yeah, so check that out and see if it meets what your scenarios. With data connectors, yes, we want you to be able to connect to APIs or JSON files, and that's something that we are it's very high on our roadmap. It's something that we're thinking about. And it's something, so that web data connectors basically allow you to connect to APIs out there, and we want to bring that into Tableau Prep. Can you link a flow to another user's flows? Yes, not in V1. So in .4, where you see the in .3, which we already released, you had the very first version of linked tasks. The next version, the next update of linked tasks, which will come soon, will allow you to subscribe to create to run your flows after somebody else's flow that you might not have permissions to run finishes. So if you are relying on some flow that IT owns, you can do that. How do I know when I have to use an add, union, or join? So basically, add, you're just adding a new node in Tableau Prep, and it can be any node. Union and join, just two specific types of nodes. Joins, you join two different tables based on a certain join clause. So maybe on user ID or department ID or something like that. Union, all you're doing is just you're merging data. So union is simply combining data. So if I have two sources that have similar data and I just want to bring all the rows together into a single table, that's what union is for. My organization does not have conductor. Are any of these new features available and or useful for people? Yeah, absolutely. Most of them. I think the only ones that are conductor related are the linked tasks. I think that's it. I think everything else that I showed today should be available just using your creator license. With Prep in the browser, is there performance difference from desktop? With Prep in the browser, it's taking advantage of the horsepower of Tableau, of your Tableau server. So if you are on premises, then your admin can just add new add resources, add compute power, and we have some guidance on that. So it actually depends on the use case, but there might be uses where if you have a limited or a not very strong machine, it might be more performant and better to do on the browser. with integration from databases transform to output to database to transform to output, is there a world where prep goes into more of a IPaaS or ETL space? So we to some degree we're already somewhere there. ETL is basically the overarching word for bringing your data from disparate sources, cleaning them, transforming them, and then loading them into where you need to use them. And you can do that with Tableau Prep today. So in a sense, Tableau Prep is an ETL tool. We'll be able to utilize parameter in a SQL statements. Yes, so you can parameterize custom SQL. You can parameterize initial SQL. And in the future, you'll be able to parameterize before and after SQL when you are doing writing to the database. What resources can I share with management to best sell benefits of data management add-on value as compared to other tools? I don't think I have the time to answer that. There's a ton of information out there. Feel free to reach out offline and to your if you have an account team at Tableau, and there is a ton of resources there. Will Prep fully support the Apple architecture going forward? I think I don't know if that already happened or it's in the process of happening, but it's absolutely. Does Tableau differentiate union and union all? I am not sure. So maybe I can get back to you on that one. And I think that's all. I'm not sure if I missed anything. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, it was been a pleasure talking with you today. Would love to hear from you. So on the screen, and Beth will put that in the chat as well. There's a link, survey link, that our user research team have put together that would love to hear from you about Tableau Prep. That will help us prioritize the things you care most about, and we would really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Youssef. That was incredibly helpful, and I loved your lightning fast Q&A. So thank you so much for making the time to do that. I have chucked written responses in for a lot of those Q&A questions as they came up. If you didn't get one, or if you feel like your question wasn't answered, feel free to just reach out and we'll keep going through those. I've popped the link to the SurveyMonkey in the chat, so have a look. I think it's about 5 up now, so I'll just pop it in again, give you a bit more spam so you can find that link. Please do head over to that and fill that one out. I'm also going to pass you on to my colleague, Kendra. So Kendra is going to have a chat to you today about prep in production, and she's going to be talking you through some of the secrets that maybe you can use in your next project around how do you go from prep in theory to prep in a workplace situation, and what sort of things do you want to keep in mind for your next project. If you've got questions as we go through this, again, please pop into the Q&A so that we can manage them. I will also pop some links into the chat as we go. So you'll see some links popping into the chat, questions in the Q&A, you know the drill, and we'll have some time at the end for those as well. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, everybody. I am Kendra Allenspach, as Beth introduced, and I live in San Jose, California. I am an analytics consultant with InterWorks. I've been with the company for almost 3 years, and prior to that, I was a Tableau developer for a different consultancy before I made the switch to InterWorks. Some of my passions are process optimization and efficiency, which is why I love Tableau Prep. And so you'll see a lot of that passion come through in my tips and tricks that I'm offering you today. And when I'm not working, I love hiking, yoga, cooking, and cute animals, especially my cat Kevin, which I've put a shameless plug for his Instagram here if you want to give him a follow. I think most of his followers are either other cats or my clients that I work with, because everybody loves Kevin. But yeah, let's dive right in. So before we get started and I share some great content with you, I would love to know what your current experience is with Tableau Prep to set the stage for what I share with you today. So 2 options for filling out this poll. There is a QR code that you can scan with your phone right from the screen and fill out. It's a 1-question poll. Or you can go to app.sly.do on your browser and enter the code that's on the screen, and you'll be able to answer the poll there as well. And so actually I need to open up the answers to the poll so that I can see your responses. So go ahead and take a second to fill those out. I'll give you a minute to answer the poll. Wonderful. I'm seeing the answers flow in. We've got over 30 responses already. And the overwhelming majority is showing that most people are using Tableau Prep in their job to prepare data sets for Tableau dashboards that they're building themselves. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And that was my hypothesis as well for the user group. But we also see a lot of people doing some ad hoc work that's just for them. And I think as a developer, we often find that we're primarily using Tableau Prep for dashboards that you're building, but there is some ad hoc work that we're doing. I like to use Tableau Prep even just for data exploration. I find that it's really easy to get a view of my data before I even put it in Tableau Desktop. I get a better read of some of the heuristics of my data just by putting it in Tableau Prep. And welcome to the 2% that have never used it and the 7% that are just here to see what it's all about. I hope that you were intrigued by Youssef's presentation and some of the new features that are coming. And I hope that I spark some inspiration in my presentation today with ways that you can really optimize and get the most out of your Tableau Prep production experience. So let's flip back over to our presentation and we will keep going. Okay, so why is it important to prep or clean your data? So there are a few different benefits here. The first one that I have on the list is that it's a more enjoyable development experience. I think that we can all agree getting into Tableau Desktop with an overwhelming data source that isn't necessarily ready for great data visualization can be very frustrating, can be very overwhelming, and often leads to a exhausting development cycle. So by taking a little bit of time up front to clean our data and really get it Tableau ready, we are enhancing our experience as developers down the line, as well as making it easier for future collaboration and maintenance of our dashboards. Another benefit of cleaning your data ahead of time is flexibility in development options. How many times have you gone into Tableau Desktop, tried to build a viz, and realized your data just wasn't in the right format to build the viz that you want? Perhaps it needed to be transposed, you needed something in a measure and it came through as a dimension, or you needed something to move from columns to rows and rows to columns, things like that. And you're just limited by the structure of your data for the visualizations that you can do. Well, Tableau Prep allows you a lot of flexibility to rearrange your data so that you can get the most out of the visualization opportunities that Tableau offers. And third, and finally, what I'll spend a little bit more time on is that you can have more efficient and performant workbooks. Hopefully, those of you that are familiar with Tableau have heard of the Tableau Designing Efficient Workbooks white paper that InterWorks and Tableau created together. It is a 80-something page white paper with tons of tips and tricks, very detailed tips and tricks of how you can make your dashboards and workbooks perform better both in desktop and on Tableau Server for your end users. And it includes everything from the way your workbook is structured, the way your data is structured, the way you make your calculations to get the most performant data. So a few different ways that you can prep your data for better performance in Tableau are on the screen here, and we'll talk through each of them quickly. So the first one is pre-join multiple inputs to avoid data blending. So sometimes there are many different inputs, and it's very tempting to blend them in Tableau and just quickly throw something together, take that shortcut to get to your output. But really, that's going to be a performance hit for you because Tableau is going to need to process that blend anytime the data is queried. Instead, what you can do in Tableau Prep is pre-join your data and create one cohesive extract that really saves time in the Tableau desktop query time because the data is already put together nicely. Another thing that you can do is reduce the size of your data source or extract. So like I mentioned before, it can be frustrating as a developer having a lot of data to play with in the workbook. If it's a lot of data that you just don't need, if it's extra fields and columns that you don't need or extra rows that you don't need, it just bogs down the query time and the processing of your Tableau workbook. And so reducing the size of your data source and your extract to be specifically what you need for that particular visualization or workbook suite is going to improve the performance, and you can do that in Tableau Prep. Another thing you can do is move complex calculations like row level calculations, level of detail, string calculations to the data source level. Again, these are things that if they're in your Tableau desktop, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but those are then getting calculated every time something gets queried in Tableau desktop. When you change a filter, when a new page loads, those are all reprocessing. So if it's something that is a calculation that's at the row level, or you are converting a string, trimming a string, things like that, it's great to move those things to the data source to really speed up the performance in Tableau. And the same goes for casting data types. So if you have data types that aren't coming in correctly from your data source, well, first you should see if your data engineering team can fix it at the actual database level. That would be your first bet. But if something is coming through from a data source that you're managing, you have the ability to change those data types in Tableau Prep. So change something from text to maybe a geolocation, or from a string to a number, or number to a string, etc. Whatever you need to make your visualization more impactful. I did see a question come through. Oh, good. Beth got it answered for the Tableau Performance White Paper. We do have a link to that in the chat, and I have a QR code to scan later if you want to get it then as well, which is right now. So this is the Tableau Performance White Paper. There's a QR code if you want to scan it with your phone to save it and maybe in your bookmarks. Otherwise, the link is in the chat. And there was also a session, I believe, at Tableau Conference and a webinar. I think Beth, yes, Beth has the link to the Tableau Conference webinar too. So that's a great way if you don't want to read the 80-page white paper to get a glimpse of what's in it, and then you can go into the white paper and skip ahead to the parts that are most relevant to you. There's two of these flowcharts that I have up here, one for workbook design, one for calculations, both great troubleshooting tools. If you're running a dashboard and it's slow, follow these flowcharts and find out where you're going to get the most bang for your buck for changing things for efficiency's sake. Okay, now that we've talked about the importance of cleaning your data and why we should be doing it and why we're using Tableau Prep in the first place, let's talk about what Tableau Prep looks like in real life. So these are two screenshots of Tableau Prep flows that I've built for real life clients. You can see they are massive. I think both of them had close to 20 different inputs. I had lots of joins, I had lots of cleaning steps, I had business logic that needed to be built in, and ultimately they both ended up in two single outputs, so two data sources for a workbook. And these were these were challenging to build, if I'm being completely honest. I think Tableau Prep provides so much opportunity and flexibility, and so I was able to do everything that I needed to do, but it took time and it took patience to think through the strategy of how I wanted to build these so that I was going to have the exact data source that I needed in the end. And so this is great. I, built this workflow, but I learned a lot in the process, and a lot of those learnings are what I want to share with you today, so that when you start to build monster prep flows, you are able to really hone in on some of the fine details that are going to make it easier for you to have success. So we are going to go through 8 tips and tricks. These are them on the screen if you want to take a screenshot. We're going to talk through each of them individually here in a moment. And then I have a bonus slide at the end for what to try when your workbook or your workflow just doesn't work, which I think if anybody's used Tableau Prep, you run into that little red alert more often than you would like, but there are things we can do to troubleshoot. So let's go ahead and head into our tips and tricks. So the first tip I have for you is to use the same version of Tableau Builder as your Tableau server or Tableau online instance. And I have an asterisk there that this is for the major and the minor version. So if I'm looking here, I have on the left Tableau Prep and how to find the specific version of Prep Builder that I'm using. If I go to the Help menu, I can go to About Tableau Prep, and then it pulls up this window, and down here, it's hard to see my blue arrow. I'll put a yellow one in there so you can see your version for Tableau Prep Builder. And the same is going to go over on the right-hand side for Tableau Server, Tableau Online. I just need to find my mouse. Oh, goodness, it's all the way over there. The same is going to go over here for Tableau Server, Tableau Online, and you can see your Tableau Server version. When I say major and minor version, you have the major version, which is the year, so you're 2021. In this case, then we have .2. That's going to be the minor version. And then this .4 that you have there, that's your maintenance version. So don't worry about that one. You're really most concerned about these first two here. So 2021 and then .21. I just realized that there's a typo in this one. Oh, I was showing the wrong one, but you get the idea. It's this one right here. Oh my goodness, ignore my drawing. It's been a long day. Okay, so let's move along to the next tip. We have Safelist, your local network input and output locations. So this only applies if you're using Tableau Server to run and work with your flows and your outputs, and if you want to use network drive locations for inputs or outputs as well. A lot of times we might store files. Let's say you have your sales goals saved somewhere on a network drive in an Excel file, and you want to bring that into your flow so that you can join it with your actual sales data to compare your actual sales to your goal. In this case, wherever that sales file is saved on my network drive, I need my Tableau Server administrator to safelist that network location so Tableau Prep can go and grab the updated goals data every time that flow runs on my Tableau Server. Otherwise, you're going to be embedding that file in the flow itself, and it won't be capturing any new data that may have been changed or added in the file when the flow runs later. So definitely keep this in mind if you use Tableau Server. If you have a network drive with files that you want to include in your prep flows, scan that Tableau help page QR code I have on the screen, and I believe that Beth put the link in the chat, and so you can also get it that way. So save that for later, because I ran into this problem when all of a sudden my flow was running, but my data wasn't updating. It was because I hadn't safe listed that location, so it was just continuing to refresh a stale file that had been embedded in my flow. Okay, moving right along. The next tip is to clean your data on a clean step and not on the input step. I learned this one the hard way. So when you are bringing your data in and you're bringing in this input step here that looks like a little circle for whatever type of input you're bringing in, it's really tempting in that step to go ahead and check the boxes for the specific fields you want, add filters, make changes, rename things. And that's great if that input connection is never going to change. And realistically, you don't know that when you're building your flow. So what you want to do instead is bring your input step in, then you want to add a clean step here that is just a bar. That's what a clean step looks like in Tableau Prep. And then you want to select your fields, rename your fields, do any manipulation or cleaning to your data there. Because then later, let's say that we no longer want to use this orders south input. We want to change it to orders south _ revised, because that's what happens. If we were to have made all those changes on the input step, we would have lost them when we replace that input connection. By making the changes to this data here on the clean step, now when we bring in the input connection, all of that cleaning is saved in the input, and so we're able to just quickly swap in our new connection and those changes are maintained. Another use case could be if you are connecting to something in a dev database and then you want to switch it to the production database. Like the tables are exactly the same. One was just going through dev, and then once you get approval, you connect to the same version in prod. All of your changes are going to be maintained in the clean step, and so you're able to swap in those dev or prod connections with no problem and not affect and have to redo all the changes in your flow. Like I said, I learned it the hard way. I had a data source data table I was bringing in with 250 fields, and I only needed to select about 50 of them for my flow. And so I went through and individually deselected the 200 I didn't need on the input. And then they came back and said, actually, can you use this version of the input instead? And I had to go through and reselect the 50 I needed and deselect the 200 I didn't need. And so that was when I learned, do it on the clean step, not on the input. Next tip is remove fields one at a time when possible. Again, this is something that seems really tedious, but you'll thank me later because when you remove multiple fields at once, let's say you Control-click and select multiple fields in your data preview window, what it looks like is you can see on the bottom of my screen on the left-hand side, it just says remove fields and then list them all out as one group of changes. So later, if somebody comes back and is like, oh, we actually need the order date, what I would have to do in the situation on the left is I would have to basically delete that change line in Tableau Prep, and it would bring back all of the fields that are included in that change step. And then I would have to go and remove everything again except for the order date. Instead, if I were to go through and individually click each field I don't need and remove it, what I get is what you see on the right side of my screen, which is where I have a new line for each field that I removed. So then later when somebody comes back and says, we need the order date, all I have to do is go here, or in this case, order month, and go to that specific change item on the Changes tab in Tableau Prep and click the little X, and voila, that field is now back in my data set, and all of the other fields that I'd already removed remain removed. So basically, the takeaway here is it can be tempting to take some shortcuts, especially when you're just trying to develop quickly and get through your day and get to the point where you actually have data. But some of those shortcuts could come back and bite you in the long run when people want to make changes to the requirements, which, let's face it, is all of the time. So definitely take the time and be patient with yourself as you're going through to save yourself some heartache down the road. Okay, the next tip, use titles and descriptions for documentation. Documentation is so important. This is where my process optimization and efficiency nerd side of me comes out, because I love documenting things. And when you're building Tableau prep flows that have hundreds of steps, like the ones I showed you before on the prep in real life slide, you think you're going to remember what you did and why you did it, but the truth is that you're not. I would build flows and I would come back the next day and be like, why did I put this step there? What was I doing in that moment to get to where I am now? And so use the titles that are on the steps as well as the description that they allow you 200 characters in to jot yourself some notes. And if you work on a team, this is great for collaboration between coworkers as well. So somebody else could look at it and be like, what was Kendra thinking? Oh, here's what she was thinking. Like I said, I mostly do it for myself because, let's face it, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but it's a great tool for collaboration as well. Also, you can put comments into the calculations just like you can in Tableau Desktop. So 2 backslashes, grays out your text, leave yourself a comment of why you created that calculation, what you're trying to do. Again, you'll thank me later when you have to go back and revisit a flow that you hoped you would never touch again, and all of a sudden you need to change it, and you'll have left yourself little, breadcrumb trails along the way of what your thought process was at the time. The next tip is save flow parts for later. This is, again, a great tip for collaboration, or if you're going to be cleaning up a data source in the same way over and over again. So you can add in and build a flow, and then you can click and drag across your Tableau prep screen and select all of the different steps that you may want to save into a flow to reuse later. Right-click, save steps as flow, save to a file or publish to server. So then later, if I have a coworker that's like, hey, I'm working on something that is for the central region and it needs to have orders and returns, do you have something? I could be like, hey, yeah, no problem. There's a flow that I've already started. I saved the parts for you. Now they're already starting on a leg up, and you know their data is going to be cleaned and organized the same as the way you already did for a different data source last week. So again, great tip to enhance your collaboration and reduce the amount of work that you need to redo over and over again. Okay, the next tip goes to something Youssef shared in his presentation as well, which is break up your flows into more manageable parts. This is a great new feature that Tableau is offering for linking tasks on Tableau server for refresh schedules, because before you would have to go through and manually refresh them and make sure they were prioritized in a certain way if you wanted one to refresh after the other. But now Tableau server can do that logic thinking for you. So you have the opportunity to take a flow, let's say run it, create an output, and then use that output as the input of another flow. This is especially good if you have a ton of files that you want to union together. I've seen flows where we want to union 30 different files together. That can be a real bear on Tableau Prep's resources, and it can just bog down your whole flow, even though that's just the beginning part. So put all those unions in one flow, output the union data into a Tableau server data source, then bring that Tableau server data source in as the input on your next flow and do all your cleaning and management of your data there. Again, a real performance time saver for Tableau Prep. And I think this might be the last tip, I can't remember, but use Prep Conductor and schedules to keep your data up to date. This requires the data management add-on on your Tableau server or Tableau online instance, but it allows you to publish your flows and create schedules to run them on a regular cadence so that you're constantly getting refreshed data. And again, like Youssef shared and like I mentioned before, version 2021.3 allows linking tasks, which is great for when you're going to break up those large flows into more manageable chunks. So definitely take advantage of scheduling so you're not having to go in and click that refresh button every day. Okay, bonus, what to do when your flow doesn't work, because let's face it, it's real life. Nothing's easy. Your flow is going to break. It's not going to work sometimes, and it's so frustrating. So the first thing you want to do is in Tableau Prep Builder, or if you're using the online version, you want to check the alerts in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You'll see something that looks like what I have here, and it is a little red triangle with a white exclamation point that says error, and it tells you what it is. Hopefully. Tableau Prep does not give the most descriptive error messages. If we're being completely honest, we all know that it says things like system error, looping, null, refresh something, and half the time I don't really know what it's telling me. So when that happens, you can try a couple different things. If it's failing, I like to go through and backtrack and remove certain steps and change my output to see like what particular step is causing the error. I like closing my Tableau Prep and restarting it. I also like going in, closing Tableau Prep, deleting my Tableau Prep log files from my computer and like clearing cache and just resetting it, opening Tableau Prep up and trying again. That often works really well. Of course, you can also try the computer restart. Sometimes that helps. But just continue to try things. It really is trial and error. And definitely check out the community forums that Tableau offers, because a lot of times there's really good discussion on there. If you're getting the error on Tableau server, check the jobs page if you have access to it, if you're an administrator, or reach out to one of your admins to help you investigate. And look at the server admin reports, the background tasks for flow refreshes, because that's usually going to give you a little bit more information than what you may get on the jobs page, or even in the email that Tableau sends you when your flow fails. You may get a little bit more information. And then the other thing that I can't recommend enough is to reach out to Tableau support. I send Tableau support a lot of tickets. That's probably why they are so backed up sometimes, but they are really helpful when they get back to you. And sometimes it does take a couple days. They're really strapped right now for resourcing, and so it does take a couple days to get a response. However, when you do, they're super generous with their time and eager to help you, and I've always gotten a resolution that I've been really happy with. And they can often uncover things in the logs that we can't see as just your average Joe developer just from looking at Builder. Scan the page here or get the link in the chat from Beth for how to get Prep Builder logs to send to Tableau support. They're probably going to ask you for them. It's good to get them ahead of time so that you're ready to go, and you can just submit them with your ticket, because then it saves a step of them having to come back and ask you for them. But like I said, Tableau Prep, Tableau support is very helpful, and they have helped me troubleshoot a lot of flows and get things resolved so that I can move on and get my data into my dashboard. And then the last thing I have are just some additional resources from Tableau. Beth will put the links in the chat for these, or you can scan the QR codes on the screen. But there is a Data Prep Best Practices by Tableau white paper, a little bit shorter than the performance white paper, but I found it really helpful as well. And then a guide to cleaning data by Tableau, just a web page that has some really good tips as well if learning how to clean your data is a new concept. And of course, you can connect with InterWorks. Please check out our blog, our community events. We have a lot of really amazing content out there on Tableau as well as Tableau Prep. And you can follow us on social. Just search for InterWorks on any of your social platforms, and we'd be happy to help. And you can add me on LinkedIn or reach out directly on my LinkedIn profile. Just search for Kendra Allenspach at InterWorks, and I'd be happy to chat with you too if you have specific questions. So thank you so much for coming. I know that we have questions in the Q&A, so let me pull that up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kendra.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of minutes to
Thank you.
Go ahead across those Q&A. They were flying in as they were from Youssef. So thank you so much for being such an interactive bunch. A few call outs from me, some personal favorites, were really thinking about what you're trying to achieve. So it can be really tempting with prep to just think, I've just got to put some stuff together. but you're putting stuff together for use in something. And so really understanding how Tableau Desktop likes its data and how data can be nice and speedy for desktop is a great way to make sure that what you're prepping is fit for purpose. So just have that in the back of your head. Where am I putting it? And check out things like those performance optimizing white paper, but also the Tableau conference talk is a perfect example of where you can get some great tips. Using the same version of Tableau, this is an absolute killer. Tableau is generally backwards compatible, which means that if you're using something that's, say, older than server, you should be fine, or older than desktop, you should be fine. But you're always going to get the best results if everything's in the same version. And don't try and do things in the other direction. So if you are using, for example, the newest version of Prep and your server's old, when you go to publish it, you're going to have problems. So check your versions, make sure you know which version you're in. And if you're deviating from everything being the same version, have a clear idea of why you're doing it. Maybe you're testing something out, proof of concept, and you're keeping it on your local desktop, in which case you're fine. Don't take shortcuts if you think the build could change. This is a biggie, and I saw lots of people questioning and throwing questions and comments in around things like, well, won't it make my clean step slower, and won't it make this step slower, and won't it make that step slower? And maybe, quite possibly. So these are shortcuts for a reason, and they're tempting for a reason. We all do them. We all try and make things faster. I've gotten rid of lots of fields on input step, and it's almost always come back to bite me. So just think really carefully about, yes, this might be the fast way of doing it now, but is it the fast way of doing it long term? And try and set yourself up for success. In terms of setting yourself up for success, really think about things like comments. So comments in calcs is a great tip. Just keep up the logic you've used to desktop. Descriptions, labels. And I'm personally really excited about looking at linking flows and breaking up my flows. So that really time-consuming 4-step process that changes this giant piece of data into this nice little bit, maybe it can just hide in the background, and I can piggyback off it. So they're my personal go-to tips from Kendra. So I'll be putting some of those into practice myself, and I'll pass you back over.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, I was just reading through the Zoom chat while Beth was recapping, and the discussion was fantastic. I did see one tip from someone that I've actually tried but failed to mention, so thanks for the reminder. I think it was, let's see. I'm sorry, I can't remember, but somebody suggested trying different versions of Tableau Prep as well, or making sure that you are in the correct version. And I know that we suggested using the same version as your Tableau server, and that is true. However, if you're troubleshooting, it could be beneficial to go back a maintenance step or up a maintenance step, or even back a minor version or up a minor version just to see if it works. Because I will say that when Tableau releases new versions of Prep, they do introduce bugs that weren't there before. So a flow that used to run may break now, or vice versa. So that can be a really good troubleshooting step too, that at least gives you more information for when you reach out to Tableau support. Like, it works in 2021.2, but not in 2021.3, and that will help them understand. So anywho, back to the Q&A. I do see some questions in here that unfortunately I'm not able to answer because I don't work for Tableau. So while I would love to promise you new features because I want them too, Youssef might get mad at me. So the first question about packaging Oracle drivers with the product, I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that, but I do know that you do have to download the new driver anytime you need to use it. So I agree with Mike that they should loop that back into the product.
And I'll feed these back to you.
Okay.
So if there are things that are coming in here that are Tableau features, of which there are a few,
okay,
don't worry, I've got a channel back. So I'm channeling
awesome.
those back.
Thank you. Thank you very much, because I was like, I'm not the right person. Okay, Z asked a question, how do you get the extract to get scheduled refresh if you use Prep to prepare? You definitely want to use Tableau Server or Tableau Online, and you utilize the Prep Conductor as part of the data management add-on to refresh your data regularly. Otherwise, you will need to refresh it manually yourself, either on the server or in Prep Builder. The next question is from Mike. The ability to document a process like the large process shown is a challenge. Freaking men. Tracking down the field origin, lineage, and manipulations is a true challenge. Will Tableau add in tools to make this easier? I completely agree with you. Documentation is one of my absolute biggest passions, and I have asked Tableau for something like this, and I know that they want to, so I can't say yes or no, but I will say I support you in your question. Mark A asked if, commented that it's slow to remove fields in the clean step. Yes, it does take you back sometimes. There is a way to eliminate fields in bulk in the clean step. You could control click or shift click and can select multiple at once, and you'd be able to remove them that way. But like I said, be careful, because that's going to group all of those removed fields into one change log on the Changes tab, and you won't be able to undo it later if you just want to bring one of those fields back in. So you can do it in bulk, but just be wary that it may come back to bite you down the road. Oh, here, this is where I saw the comment. Jordan Woods commented that they create flows in older versions and they've been rebuilding them in newer versions to help with performance. And that is a time-consuming but good solution. I have done that as well. So if your Tableau server upgrades and you're able to upgrade your Tableau Prep to match, and you have the capacity to rebuild, that can be a good way to improve the performance of your flows. Fritzy asks, can we have multiple versions of Tableau Prep in the server? No, you cannot. You are just limited to the version of your Tableau server, which is only one version. You can publish Tableau Prep flows from older versions of Tableau Prep Builder to a newer version of Tableau Server. But it could introduce bugs. I like to keep them the same version. That's when I have the most success. What you don't want to do is be a version ahead of your server, because that's going to introduce complications where you may be using features in Prep Builder that just aren't available on server, and then your flows won't work. Can multiple flows be managed in a single flow to keep them aligned and maintained in a single schedule? So one flow file can have multiple flows in it with multiple outputs. So you could manage them that way, but you would want to then publish them, and then your schedule is actually not by flow, it's by output. So then when you schedule your output, you would then just link those different outputs together using that new linking tasks feature. And then the last question, what is the best way to use data source in Tableau Prep? Directly use in Tableau Prep or publish online and use that data source in Tableau Prep? That's a really good question. I like to connect to the raw data in the database whenever possible, but I have had instances where I have created a data source in Tableau Desktop or from a Tableau Prep flow and then reused it as an input. So I'd say you'd probably get, I don't know the technical answer. I can just speak from my own experience, which is that I like it better when I'm connecting to the raw data versus like a Tableau curated data source as an input. However, I will just say my experience of using Tableau data source inputs isn't a lot. And so I just can't speak to which one is actually more performant, but run some tests, see which one you like better. It may just be user choice. So that's it. Thank you, guys. I really appreciated you giving me the time to share. And like I said, definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to connect, or if you have other questions, I'd be happy to chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kendra, and thank you everyone for your interaction in that piece as well. I have some good news for you as well, in that today we are also doing a giveaway. So thank you for everyone who made the time to be here today. I have chosen some winners with my very scientific random number generator in the back end here of people who have come along to today's session. So if you see your name on the next page, congratulations, you've won a book. You can have something for your Christmas reading list and for your next prep project, and we will be in touch about getting this book to you. So drum roll, the winners of our giveaway are, and in no particular order, Kristen, Tom, Vinitha, Emilio, and Brian. So if your name is in the list above, congratulations, you have won a book. We will be in touch and we will make sure that we get those on their way to you, and hopefully in time for Christmas and some pet projects over the Christmas break. Thank you everyone for joining me today and for joining my lovely guests. It has been my absolute pleasure to host the last session of the year for the Tableau Prep user group. I know I've learned a ton of things today. I hope you have too. If you have feedback about today's session, or if you have questions, please feel free to get in touch with myself or any one of our attendees here today. I'll pop my details as well into the chat. So if you want to reach out and have a conversation, or you have feedback for me in particular around what you want to see at the next one, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time.